The Garnet and Old Show, no inside info, no contacts, no problem. Thursday, 7 o'clock. I am Ryan. That is Vince. Vince, how are you on this on this Monday, not Thursday? I'm used to saying Thursday because we do our show every Thursday, but no, we're doing this as a special show on Monday. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Ryan, for finding the time to do this. You had told me a long time ago that Thursday was going to be bad for you, and I just remembered like yesterday that Thursday was going to be bad for me. So we are doing this show Monday night, and no matter what night we do it, we are always going to be supporting our buddy Captain John Black with Captain Black's Fishing in Panama City Beach. He has sponsored Garnet Old for a really long time. He is a longtime supporter, a longtime Nole, Marching Chief alum, and he just, he's a good guy. So if you like fishing, look him up, and when you're in the Panhandle, give him a call. Let him know that Garnet and Old sent you, and he'll probably be in the chat here tonight if he happens to get the notification. So hopefully he's going to get that. So thank you, Captain John Black.
Absolutely. Well, Vince, not the show we wanted to have to do on a Monday. We're going to go over Virginia just for a little bit. Don't want to stay on it too long because I think we all saw what happened. I thought, Vince, when we were down 14-0, I said, okay, well, you even texted me, challenge has arrived. Let's see how we do. And once we got up 21-14, I'm just gonna be honest, Vince, I thought, hey, this is good. Like, got down early, 21-14. I thought we were looking very competent on offense. The defense was continuing to be a struggle, but I thought we had self-corrected and that we were going to not necessarily roll the rest of the game, but I thought it was very likely that we could be on pace for something like a 35-21 Florida State victory. I thought that's where we headed, and that's not where we ended up. It was a confusing game for me, knowing how we handled Alabama on the offensive line with our defense. I thought, okay, we'll settle down, flow of the game. We'll get back, and play our normal defense. But what was crazy is, Vince, is that I was worried about Virginia's passing game coming into the game.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't anticipate is that they wouldn't even need it. They were seemingly running the ball at will for 5 to 6 at a time. Our defense could do nothing about it. And what's most frustrating, and I'll kick it over to you to get your feeling on this, is that it wasn't for a lack of us hitting them as we normally would with the rest of the games that we've already played, right when they, get to the line of scrimmage or 1 yard in. It was that after the initial contact, it didn't even phase them, and we didn't wrap up, and they would, get another 6 yards or 10 yards or 12 yards on the regular. So frustrating result, frustrating game. What are your thoughts?
I thought that started out a little sloppy, and not necessarily like overtly sloppy, like just enough sloppy, right? Just enough sloppy to create a hole. They definitely battled back from that. You were an inch away from a pick six, which I think possibly turns that game on its ear. And then you don't, you basically squashed some belief, a lot of the belief, but it didn't happen that way. Not only did the pick six not happen, the pick didn't happen. And then, guys start kind of hero balling it, which we had not seen any of that. Like we got 4 guys surrounding him trying to strip the ball out. And so to me, that is the thing that I started, when I started seeing multiple instances of this, where guys are doing things out of the ordinary. Like hitting someone is not tackling somebody. but they were of the opinion Friday night that as long as I hit you, that's all I need to do. There was a
You'll
lot
go
of good
down.
hits. There's a lot of good hits, but they didn't fold like a cheap suit like Bama did. Like Bama folded, and Virginia did not fold. And not only did they not fold, they continued to move forward. And I think our mentality for that game from the defensive side had already been set, and it took a while for them to kind of regain their bearings, and they started to play a little better. But by that point, Virginia had some belief, and belief in the college game goes a long, long way.
Yeah.
I wasn't disappointed with the offense at all. I mean, could they be a little cleaner in some things? Sure. But they scored enough points to win. The defense let them down in a big, big way.
Yeah. Yeah, the yards were there for the offense. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at the total yards. I mean, it didn't look that much different than the rest of the year. Aside, if you take away the 2 turnovers, which the second turnover early in the game was worse because you were in the red zone and it looked like we were about to score, and then you fumble again, they score again. So,
Yeah.
but then after those 2, you know, turnovers earlier in the game, from that point on, honestly, I thought this is this was probably from a quarterback perspective, the best game Florida State's had, in my opinion, from a passing attack. I mean, I thought Castellanos placed the ball very well. I thought
Most of the
he had
time, yeah.
some pretty impressive throws that I didn't even know he was going to make. And I thought the receivers, for the most part, made some really tough contested catches. It just, what I think happened, Vince, is that the game plan, if you're FSU's defensive coordinator, if you're Tony White, you're expecting, okay, our game plan is going to be focused on that quarterback and the passing attack. I think we've got the run game under control, but that quarterback is dangerous. Can make some moves on them on his own, and we need to make sure that the passing attack doesn't kill us. What I didn't think they adjusted well to is no, this has become honestly what we're going to see from Miami, which is a whole lot of
Bully ball.
running the ball and strongman and seeing if you're going to respond. And we didn't respond well at all. And really the last thing, I don't want to belabor the point too much. I really felt very strongly that the flow of the game was not favoring us if it were to go into overtime. So when we scored a touchdown to potentially tie the game in the late in the fourth quarter, everything in me from a just, man, I don't feel good about this going to overtime standpoint. Our defense hasn't been able to stop them. I really felt like you do the old, okay, we're going for 2 for the win. And if we lose on going for 2, hey, man, I still would have thought it was the right call. You lost by 1. It sucks. But you play with the winner's mentality. I think they took the safe way out and said, okay, I think we're playing well on offense. We can match them score for score. And if it goes to overtime, which they did until they didn't. I think the last thing we should probably talk about, Vince, in regards to the Virginia game, is the catch, no catch situation. I'll give you my strong take, and then I know you have a different take. Just my opinion, and you guys can pull my no card if you want to. I actually totally and fully agreed after I saw the slow down replay with the officials calling that not a catch. I think if all of you stepped back and it wasn't Florida State playing that game and we were watching just some random other college football game around the country and they reviewed that play, I think all of us at home, if it wasn't the Seminoles, would be saying, either way, I could see them saying it was a catch after the review. I could see them saying it wasn't a catch. And whatever the result was, we'd be like, yeah, I can see it. I know it's hard to take off like the no glasses and get past that, but as a football fan and taking away my Florida State fandom, I can look at that and say, yeah, I can see why they would say that that's overturnable and enough evidence to say that. The reality of the situation on that catch is it should have been caught. It was wide open. Deuce, you played your heart out the whole game. You had a really good game. That was not a good moment. It was a perfectly thrown ball right in your stomach. It was not a hard catch. It wasn't like behind you. And I'm sure he would tell you that. I'm sure if he's reviewing film right now with Gus Malzahn, he would say, "Hey, that's on me. I should have caught it the first try, and not had that bobbling." But listen, game pressure, I'm sure played a factor. A little nerves that hey, it's all on the line here. Who knows if we would have even gotten the 2-point conversion after that? So I'm not saying that cost us the game. I'm not one of those guys that just because it went against us, they screwed us. I don't think the refs screwed Florida State in that play. If you wanted to take that route and say the refs screwed us, you can, in my opinion, you could much easier describe them not calling a delay a game when Virginia's offense was not on the field and their special teams were on the field.
When they didn't know the rules.
And they didn't know the rules, and that should have been a delay game, and that could have backed them up. Doesn't mean that they don't score when they back them up. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we would have won the game, but it certainly is harder to get a conversion when you're further away. But I could have no problem with someone saying the refs screwed us on that one. But just my opinion, kicking it over to you, Vince, I agree with the call on the field that was not a catch.
I'll be more short-winded than that. And that is, they call it a catch, bunch of replays. You know, when it's in slow-mo, can you tell that something's being bobbled versus something being pulled in for a tuck? Can you tell? I don't know that you can tell. But I'm not upset either way. They call it a catch, it's a catch. They call it not a catch, not a catch. Shouldn't have come down to that. Right. And, you know, there have been other times in the life of my fandom where the refs have completely hosed the Noles. I did not feel that way in this game. You know, they got a little involved at times that maybe they shouldn't have, but there were a lot of opportunities for Florida State to turn that game to their way, to their side.
Right.
And it just seems like none of them went their way. And that's just the way it goes.
And Vince, I want to be totally fair to the refs. You could, again, taking off the no cap, say, well, I 100% saw a missed pass interference call that should have been called on us earlier in the game, where we definitely got there early, and it was a no call. So it's football. Some calls go for you, some calls goes against you, but we definitely, like, almost a full second on an earlier pass for Virginia got there and broke up the pass. That was definitely pass interference. That was a no call. So listen, you live and you die sometimes with calls going your way or not the way, but I do want to encourage fans to get over the notion on every game that, oh man, we got screwed. We didn't get screwed. We didn't play well. Honestly, I thought Virginia deserved to win the game.
Yeah. So I'll just quote my best friend, Mike Norvell, who I've known for years and years and years. We earned that loss.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't own it more than that.
Right.
You can't own it more than that. For those of you that are watching here live, I know you're shocked. You're like, what is Garnet Old doing on Monday evening? Well, Ryan and I both have some engagements on Thursday. So we are recording now, and we are also going to rebroadcast this on Thursday night. So if you're happen to be watching this on Thursday night, you can't super chat us because we're not live, but you could super thanks us because we're looking to get a $100 FFM goal tonight to help support the channel. In light of this week, Ryan, in light of Miami week, we reached out to a good friend of mine, and I know you just got a chance to meet him. But we've got a fellow content creator that's going to be joining the show now. He's got his own show. It's a college football national show, but he is a Miami fan. And so there's a lot of lean toward that. So I want to welcome Rock and Rant to the show right now. Welcome, Glenn.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. Thanks, Vince. And And since I know you guys are rebroadcasting on Thursday, we'll be video on demand. Make sure you guys hit the hype button for these guys too.
Oh, right.
Because that helps get them more credibility, more love, and share this channel, which I watch regularly, even as a Miami fan.
Yeah, thanks. I always forget about the hype thing because we rarely do a pre-recorded video. So yeah, the hype thing.
There's one reason
new.
to have me on before it goes south for everybody else.
So before we get into all the talk about this massive, massive weekend, why don't we let everybody know about you and your show and the things that that you guys talk about?
Yeah, for sure. So we launched a new channel called College Football Express. Drop the E, just with an X. We were doing a national show on a Miami channel called Miami Flow. That channel still exists, but we moved it over to its own channel because we wanted to expand into a lot more national content. We're never going to act like we don't have Miami filters when it comes to, especially Notre Dame and the Gators. Begrudging respect for the history with the Noles. It's a little bit different, at least from my point of view. I'm in the Miami fans that would have preferred you guys to be undefeated heading into this because I like when we each other give the misery shot for the season. But we talk about everything on that, from game picks like a lot of channels do to the boring tried and true of realignment, legal stuff in the off season. But right now we're all about ball.
And do you guys have a weekly cadence, or how's that typically work?
We're doing right. If you're done when these guys wrap up, if you want to see our recap of the past weekend, including the Gators, the Noles game with Virginia, we do that on every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and then we do our pick show segment on Wednesdays. Once in a while, we'll do a live stream, random video. But we have those two mainstays, and then it's random rants, so to speak.
Right. Awesome. And I know I've watched your stuff, and I've also seen you on Big 12 Mafia or college football.
The college football Mafia. I jump on with Moen on their show on Sunday nights. If you love me or hate me, you can thank Seminole Nation for that, because it started in response to Jen Knoll and other Florida State fans on those channels, and me weighing in with comments. So you created the monster in some form, if not necessarily Ryan and Vince.
So let's talk about this week. Well, before we get to this week, how are you feeling with the first part of the season? What has surprised you? Is there or if there's anything that you're concerned about with the team?
I mean, I feel as good as I felt in 20 years about the first part of the season. That admittedly has a 7-5 average barrier to it, because that's really what it's been. We've been more fortunate to have less under 500 seasons, but on average since like 2024, it's been 7-5. The things I was the most concerned with coming into the season was really, can I buy the potential hype of fixing the worst defense I've ever seen in FBS in my life? Again, I watched it all the time. I cried a lot. I had Cam Ward and had to watch that. And whether or not that would happen, I was cautiously optimistic when I saw that we got essentially like a serial killer looking guy, Heatherman from Minnesota, to come in. And so far, so good. We have played teams that have had good offenses so far. You guys will present a very different challenge with Castellanos, and I was a doubter on him, and I am no longer a doubter about him. We can certainly get into that. But the defense has been better than I expected or hoped to have happen. So I'm happy about that. The trenches are well beyond my expectations, and they were already high. I can't emphasize enough how dominant it has been. And I think that it's not just you want to say, hey, you're a Miami fan. You can listen to other people say that. You don't have to necessarily buy into what I'm saying. The things I'm concerned about is we haven't had on the offense, outside of the Notre Dame game, really explosive plays, the top-end speed guys running routes. Jordan Lyle in the running back room, which has been great with Mark Fletcher and Jamar Brown, has been injured, and he's sort of the breakaway guy. JoJo Trader, a very highly recruited wide receiver, has been injured and dinged up a little bit, and potentially not been practicing as hard as necessary to make it in. I think Mario has made the move into there's no more nonsense, because we can afford to not play you kind of zone, so you have to earn it. So I'm still concerned about that. I'm concerned about whether Tony White's going to be the third defensive coordinator in a row to figure out how to get our transfer center Brockenmeyer to throw off some things, which I don't think we can afford to do at Doak. But generally, I'm actually scared about how positive I've been about this season because I've been in the prove it zone for me. I am neither glass half full nor half empty. I'm just like, let me see what it is. Let's try to be as fair as possible, even with the filter on.
Yeah, I think you are where we were last week before the Virginia game. I mean, I actually think Florida State's season up until Virginia and Miami season, which is why we're all hoping for kind of the big clash, right, of undefeateds. It's because it felt kind of similar. Like we were very very aggressive, very strong on the lines, and so what got me impressed with Miami is just the way in which they are playing, in my opinion, a very buttoned up and what I would consider like almost like a professional style of play. Like they're not relying on, although it will always be part of the Miami brand, they're not relying on like the Manny Diaz vibe. Like where it has to look a certain way. Miami has been balanced. They have been efficient, and that's what scares me the most. Now, going into this game specifically, I have no idea now what to expect from Florida State because we saw Florida State do very well against Alabama, which I think you would probably agree after watching Alabama play Georgia that their offensive line, defensive line don't suck, and we did pretty well there. But then we have this meltdown against Virginia. Now, I think a lot of national people will say, hey, a lot of people probably could have seen this coming outside of the Noles fandom. It's a setup game, Friday night, weird games, conference game on the road before a big game against Miami. So how much does that play in? I don't know. But I can tell you my opinion is very impressed with Miami so far. While not having a clue on an outcome, I have not made a decision on really how I want to predict this game. I think it's going to be very tough to predict, but I do think it's whoever sets the tone early on who is not a paper tiger, but and also like a actually bringing the heat early in the game, similar to how Florida State Alabama went. Like, who is that team that sets the tone early?
Yeah, listen, I was listening to you guys before you brought on. There was a couple of things that were interesting to me. One, your concern of not knowing. When I watched Florida State against Alabama in that first quarter, it was strange to me. I don't know whether, I didn't see whether you guys talked about it in this way, but it gave me Florida State versus Georgia Tech vibes last year, right? Where Florida State just came out and just took control in a way that I didn't expect. Florida State had their first great drive against Georgia Tech, but then when Georgia Tech came back, I was like, what the hell's going on here? That doesn't make any sense to me. That's kind of what I felt when I watched Florida State against Alabama, knowing that Alabama's trenches, defensive line, offensive line, all preseason, take that for what it's worth, we're all rated at the top 5 to 10 units in college football. So when I saw that, it was like, all right, this is going to be interesting because in my head, I didn't know where Florida State was. I think I had a bounce back year, but not a bounce back year in Florida State terms. Like if you were 7-5, that would be great from a 2-10 on your way back up, right? Yep. That's what I thought because I didn't really believe in Castellanos because I couldn't true up the narrative of him leaving Boston College. Neither benched nor did he quit. What did that? Right. That doesn't. I don't. What's the in between? I don't know. But he's proven my doubts very wrong. I'm quite impressed, including in the Virginia game. So I don't know either because Virginia, as you talked about, when you're down 3/5 of your offensive line that wouldn't have been preseason ranked in the top half of the ACC, for that to happen was kind of surprising. So which one of those do I take against what I do believe are one of the best trenches in college football, especially offensive line versus defensive line? So I don't know either, right? That's what makes me not be like, hey, I know Miami is going to win. I'm going to pick Miami in this game to not shock anybody, but that scares me, right? And then you add it's Doak at night, and then you add it's just the Noles and the Canes. But that was surprising as hell to me to watch how that all played out, even if we grant that Virginia has one of the better offenses in college football and maybe one of the top 3 in the ACC. I'll give them that. I don't think that they're the best offense in the ACC. I think that they're probably the top 25%. But they might have had their best game of the season against you guys, right? Mm-hmm. In which case their ceiling is pretty high, even if they're not going to do that all the time because they were up for you guys on a Friday night. Yep. And as a Canes fan, I have PTSD from Virginia Tech games on Thursday night, so I understand.
Yeah.
Yep. Let me throw this quick super chat in here. Friends call me Sean. I like this. Welcome rant. If all goes well, maybe this could be an annual FSU Miami week
Love it.
event. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's the idea, right? And the more content creators out there that that are for teams we're going to play, that are not just trolling, you know what I'm saying? Like people that are actually college football knowledgeable, like Rock is. We want to do it all the time. So here, you got someone that's happy you're here, Rock.
Yeah.
Hey, we have a shared friend. I actually have more Noles friends from being online than one would expect, even though I will take my moments when I'm attacked or at the origin story, because I like to be fair and defend, right? And I don't like when I didn't particularly like the way people were messing with your guys' heads on realignment, even though I think you're a big brand, you're going to get where you want to go. So things like that just kind of annoy me in the narrative and the SEC crap. And I think you guys got screwed back in 2023. I think facts are facts. So that is probably, even though I'm a dreaded Cane, has hopefully earned me some credibility and with some of the Nole Nation out there online.
Yeah. One thing, Vince, I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Coming off this defensive conversation from Florida State's end, Tony White at Nebraska, go back and look at every season he was there.
Mm-hmm.
He would have huge games against Ohio State in which it's just locked down. That looked very similar to the game we had against Alabama. But then he would have random games against just a random conference opponent where he gives up 40 or 50 points. Now, the good news is, if you go back and look at the history, it's usually once and maybe twice a year, but it's usually one or two. That's like, oof, what the hell happened there? And then the rest of the season, you're like, no, they shut people out completely. So how much, Vince, do you think that it was just one of those games that, maybe we have to get accustomed to from Tony White once or twice a season, where whatever it is, the matchup, the type of team, the type of offense, it seems like he can scheme it up like in big time games, but then just on a random other game, it just falls apart for no reason and there's no explanation. Then the next week, Nebraska would be right back to dominating. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that are, how is that different than any other coach? And any other team? Because
the variance.
even Mickey Andrews. I mean, we vaunted Mickey Andrews. There were games where the defense wouldn't play as well, so of course that's going to happen because perfection is not attainable, right?
Usually wouldn't you see like, hey, usually we hold people to 21, but that week we gave up 35. It's not
I get
like
what you're
Tony
saying.
White. It would be like 3 points, 2 games in a row, and then 48,
Well, and these are kids too, and I know they get paid.
Yeah.
And it's tough to be, and people say it all the time, it's tough to be up every week. And did they take their foot off the gas thinking that Friday night was going to be maybe not what it needed to be, or they could freelance a little bit? Probably. We're not in the locker room. We're not out on the field. We should be. They should let us go out to watch the practice. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't look at that any different than I would look at any other coach that, you're not going to stifle every team every week in and week out, and be pushing for a shutout every week. That's not the way college football works. So I'm not worried about that. What I would be concerned about is more so his ability to keep the guys on edge more so than not. So that's what I'm looking for. From a defensive side, from the Miami standpoint, you guys, you really haven't had anybody pressure you that I can tell from a really all-out offensive side, from the offensive side of the ball. Notre Dame's offense has been suspect, to say the least. And then I think you played Bethune-Cookman, right? So
yeah, Bethune-Cookman was our cupcake one.
Right. And then Florida obviously has maybe one of the most abysmal offenses that I've seen in a long, long time. Even rivaling what Florida State did last year.
Yeah.
So So what do you think? I know the defense has had a big turnaround thus far.
Yeah,
What
we
do you
all buy
know
the Miami
about that?
defense.
Yeah, what do you know about that staff when it comes to keeping your guys on edge when the time comes where you're going to get some adversity from the offensive side of the ball?
Well, I would say my take on the defense is kind of in a way versus some of those offenses. Though South Florida's offense isn't as bad, and the Notre Dame offense
Sure.
in the second half with CJ Carr, and he's had a couple of good games since. They got beat in that A&M game, but they helped fire a coach. I was hoping to do that to Billy. Maybe you guys will get the chance for the Gators, but maybe not. Actually, it might happen this week with the over under of like 12 between them and
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah.
You know how it is when you play somebody you're not expecting, or the offense isn't what you think. You could still tell. I could still tell FSU was for real in those two games after Alabama, because you literally obliterated the living hell out of your opponent the way you should. Unlike maybe
Right.
Penn State against FIU, which told me a lot, and I was not surprised about Saturday night with their offense, because it was only 10-0 in the second quarter against FIU. Has a great new coach, but it's going to take a minute before they're even a competent G6 team. But we've had a couple of broken plays, but they've been fixed. The things we saw all the time last year, and probably the best information I have on the defense is I did go down to the Miami versus Florida game. I live on the West Coast, and I went to an event the day before, and I spent like 30 minutes talking to Ed Ogeron, who was there at this event, and his son happens to be a GA, so he's at Miami all the time, and like when he was talking to everybody, he was raving about Corey Heatherman. But when he was talking to us and we're asking questions and it was more real, he just couldn't stop raving about the guy. That was a recommendation that came from Shiano. The thing he's done, he's made the scheme easier to free up those players. So what you'll see, and this is, I think, a difference that Florida State's going to need to deal with, like they did in the first game but didn't do it with Virginia, is you'll never just see one Miami defender near the tackler. Somebody, if a broken tackle happens, you will see 4, 5, and 6 players in short proximity to that to make sure that bad tackle from a D back that doesn't want to really tackle hard doesn't turn into something more extensive, which happened in Miami all the time last year. They're not overthinking things. They're not stunting in every play. You're not seeing Ruben Bain dropping into coverage, but you might see him at DT. So I think that they have freed it up. I've heard a lot of good feedback, not necessarily on the recruiting trail, but on the defensive line side from the defensive tackle coach, who's a former Miami player. And you can see what Jason Taylor has done with the ends, right? I mean, that goes without saying. So I think that we have new people in to help what was the worst defense I've ever seen, plus a completely new coaching staff outside of Jason Taylor, and they've gelled faster than I might have expected. I was just hoping for the Miami defense to be like ranked 50th. If they were 50th and our offense was 30th, I knew we'd have a good year. It's exceeded expectations. But now we got to see what they do with Castellanos, right? USF quarterback, they didn't really spy him much, maybe here or there, but they didn't try to figure that out and were able to contain him really well.
Yep.
But Castellanos is another speed, another intelligence level with his IQ on the field and what he's done to engender the Florida State offense in general. So I'm super worried and curious about that. I think we'll all know a lot after the first quarter, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So what about your offense so far? Let's flip to Miami's offense. I think most Kane fans that I know, it's been like it's fine. Like that's been the overall take. Like happy, not thrilled. Is that kind of your take on it? And how do you think your style of play matches up against the style of defense that Florida State plays? Which even if you're not going to remove Virginia result, most of the time we like to have a lot of speed, a lot of heavy on the DBs, heavy on the kind of players that can do both, and then three defensive lines, sometimes 4, but a lot of times 3. What do you think your offense is going to do?
I think that we have to. So I'm probably more measured and / optimistic, but not delusionally high about what the Miami offense is. We don't have Cam Ward again. We have Carson Beck, and Carson Beck to me is still one of the 10 best quarterbacks in college football. Whether he's going to be in New York on the Heisman or not, like this, after 4 games, he's in the conversation, but he shouldn't be booking
Yeah.
a plane ticket yet, right?
Yeah.
But I'm of the mindset that Notre Dame, when it's all said and done, is going to have one of the better defenses, despite their aberration with Texas A&M, right? Because that just turned into one of those games. But they played pretty tough against Miami. The Gators, as terrible as their offense is, and it is terrible. It's terrible on the TV, it's terrible on your phone, and it's terrible in person. Their defense is not, even with some injuries.
Yeah.
Like, they still have that to give them credit for. And not that it's an excuse, because both teams are playing with the same ball in the same weather, but the rain certainly did things. But the other part to me is Mario, I think, with that offensive line mindset, like, I'm less worried that he's stifling the offense than after last year, because we now saw that he would let Shannon Dawson, let Cam Ward go loose.
Yep.
But I also think the team potentially just knows that they could win a number of different ways. So if they were trying to reduce, the opportunities in Notre Dame for them to do it, I think they were too conservative on offense, and that was dangerous. That scares me.
Yeah.
I was less concerned about it in the Florida game, but for a moment, I had to make sure I went back to my chair instead of hanging out, back talking to friends I hadn't seen for a while, because that was the reason why Florida scored, by doing that.
Right.
But I think we haven't really seen what that offense is going to really be. We may or may not see it in its full effect against Florida State for all the reasons we've talked about: rivalry, big matchup, lights, adrenaline. But I think when it's all said and done, that offense is going to be significantly more productive. Whether it's that way for this game, my dog seems to think it might be. Apologies about that. We shall see. Speed is an issue. Not that the team isn't fast, but two of the most, the fastest players, Jordan Lyle and the running back suite, to complement Mark Fletcher, JoJo Trader hasn't been there, but they've still gotten a bunch of plays, and Malachi Tomei has made up for a lot of issues, plus a couple of remarkable catches. But we'll see. I think they'll be more productive as the season goes. I am not overwhelmed by what I've saw, but I sort of understand it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get back to this weekend here in a moment, but let's just say this weekend has come and gone, and let's just say Miami wins. What's next from a Miami fan standpoint, or from your standpoint? What are you looking for? What are the next bumps in the road that you can see? I know you get a bye week after Florida State, right?
Yeah. My biggest concern is the Coke Zero version of the ACC screwing their biggest brands. You guys know it really well. Our version this year, relative, is, hey, let's get about Florida State and get 2 bye weeks sandwiching them, and then go 7 straight conference games and end the last 2 on the road. And to me, I won't be completely set about Miami has made a change. I don't say Miami's back. Back will be if there's a 6th ring. Then I'll say we're back. Until then, it's like, I just want to be in games and having a conversation and not crying in November. So I'm still nervous. I'm less nervous, though, about beginning of the season, worrying about ending at Virginia Tech. Not so worried about it as much anymore.
Sure.
Despite their win. Shout out NC State. Way to do that. Congratulations on that one. And then Pitt, who we've had problems in the past and ending in the cold. But I'm less concerned about Pitt because Pitt's been fairly pitiful. I watched that Louisville game. I was worried about Louisville more before the season. That was the game that most concerned me. A game at home, but on a Friday night. And I think Brom is one of the best coaches in college football, schematic-wise, and can do things. But I've watched all of their games too. And yes, they came back against Pitt, but they've just been like meh. But it's still in my head that there's going to be that random slip-up game, because you were talking about it earlier with Tony White and his scheme. Mario's kind of been like that, right? He has to break that trend. He almost always has his teams, whether it's Oregon or Miami, up for the big games. He always has them pretty prepared for the rivalry games, unless he doesn't have the horses. It's the stupid games, the games he shouldn't do. The Syracuse and the Georgia
the crystal ball effect. Yeah,
the crystal ball effect, which I think is a little bit too far from reality. But is also based in truth. Like, most stereotypes start in truth, and then they go like completely crazy and either live or not. I think, somewhere in the middle is, I could have called the timeout a couple of years ago, right? My grandmother, she's dead. She could have called the timeout.
Right.
So there's things like that have warranted it. But I'm hoping now that he's trusting his coordinators more. But it's more about that random, what did that happen? And in a world where, unfortunately, Georgia Tech and maybe Virginia both have a pretty damn freaking awesomely easy schedule to the ACC conference world. If you guys took your stub, maybe you beat us, but then the crazy ACC tiebreaker rules happen, and suddenly we're watching Georgia Tech versus Virginia in there, while Miami and Florida State are the two highest ranked teams in the AP poll.
That's correct.
Like that stuff's possible.
What's funny you say
nuts.
that.
I've looked, and it can happen.
Yep.
What's funny is that, and I know this sounds crazy now to say, but I promise you this is going to happen. I feel it. Clemson's going to F everything up by beating a few of those teams.
Clemson's going to beat Georgia Tech, and I mean, not Georgia Tech. No, not Georgia Tech.
No, Virginia.
Yeah, Clemson's going to beat Virginia.
It's going to happen. Yeah,
they are, and there's going to be some like fifth generation, once removed thing where our victory, like in this world, your victory over Miami, our victory over everybody else, it doesn't ever match up when we get down to the fifth tiebreaker rule, which is what a team that you never played did against everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And that would be so ACC, because the only thing the ACC can actually do right is do the replay booth where we can hear microphones, and that's like the best thing the ACC's ever done in their history of college football since 2000.
Congratulations, Jim Phillips! You did it. You did something that people are
even during the Virginia game.
About.
Wasn't it nice throughout that whole game, because there was a lot of replays in that game? It was so cool to be like, not have to wonder like what's taking so long, or what are they even looking at, to actually hear them being like, okay, show me that angle again, show me that angle, okay, it's confirmed. I love it. They should do it on every game in every conference.
Yeah, I mean, broken clock theory, ACC edition.
So so I asked you what you're looking for then if you win, and then if Florida State happens to pull the game out, does that change your outlook that you just brought up across all the other rest of the games you have?
I think if we lose to Florida State, Miami probably will, just the way it works, and won't lose another game after that.
Right.
I think Miami's fundamentally one of the best teams in the country, and I think I had Miami in my preseason at like number 10. I wasn't number 1 in there. I had Clemson, Texas at number 1 or 2. So take it for what it's worth. I'm as clueless about that as anybody else who pays attention to it all year long, let alone gets actually paid for it. But I think they'll wind up in that case, and then it'll just be super interesting. I personally still think it's going to be carnage in a different way for the SEC. I think SEC is going to go full Big 12 this year, right? And there'll be maybe one team with 0 or 1 loss, probably just 1 loss, and a bunch of 3 and 4 loss teams. That's what I kind of think is going to happen. So
that's what college football looks like right now.
That's what it looks like right now. It's getting more and more towards pro, and whether you like that or not, the TV ratings suggest that we all like it still, even if we hate it. Like, we might be hate watching, but we're all watching. So 2 weeks ago, I was sitting there on our show talking about how it's completely possible and plausible that the ACC could get 3 teams in. Now the Big 12 got a better shot of doing 2, but every week it changes. So, it's hard to really narrow it down when the reality is Miami hasn't even played a conference game yet.
So I heard you say a little bit ago that you're never going to say Miami's back until you get a 6th ring.
Correct.
I think that's you individually, right? But the ultimate, I'm going to give you a little grace here. I don't know that is what you need to be shooting for. I mean, you obviously want to get the ring, but just being perennially in the playoff contention, I think, means you're back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'll take that, absolutely. I mean, the thing is on the stereotypes, right?
Right.
Most Miami fans on Kane's Insight or your 24/7 on 3, nobody there is like, we're back. Like, it's a joke to say that. Right. It's the national media that does that crap now. Did it happen for a while? Of course it did, right? But the last decade plus, even the most rose-colored glasses people, you don't do that without knowing you're either just completely doing it tongue-in-cheek, or you're about to get destroyed privately on your message board, right? I don't care. Look, I would like to win a conference championship, even in the ACC, but I really don't care personally. I'll take 5 versus 3 every day. Yeah. You can have 97 ACC championships. I don't care. I want rings. I want things that like people in Iowa know. about. Like, I have no idea who's won the most Big Ten championships. I'm sure it's probably Ohio State or Michigan, but I really don't care what the count is. But yes, I'll take having relevant seasons. I'll take Miami and Florida State being good at the same time. And I know I will get destroyed over that. If you guys lose every game after, that's, whatever. But I'm fine to break each other's hearts. It's more fun. I like winning the big games. And I might even like being a glutton for punishment and suffering the bigger losses that way, because I know it mattered that 13 million people watch the damn game, because the brands matter still.
Yeah. And make no mistake, this is still, even with Florida State's disappointing loss, it's still ranked versus ranked Miami, Florida State, which hasn't happened a whole lot in the last couple. Listen, it's no Alabama Vanderbilt, but it's still a very interesting game. And
not only that, Ryan, not only that, but how ESPN is it to change College Game Day to Tuscaloosa, but still have the top tier broadcast team going to the Florida State Miami game? So basically, Herb Street gets to sidestep in the side door and not have to take any flack, but yet he gets to do the best game of the weekend.
Yeah, that was, look, as a Miami fan, you guys getting a 3-hour commercial would probably not be awesome. It's, but I wanted it so bad. I had popcorn ready because I just wanted to see what the hell you guys were going to do and what the sign game was going to be for the 2023 season. And it will happen sooner or later again. And I heard Kirk is our savior and your guys' devil, right? Like what Kirk did on game day and dunking on Miami was part of the narrative. It might have been happening already. Shout out Jonathan Vilma for the little slide hustle to Kirk Herbstreit. But when you guys have that moment, and you will have that moment again, I will be watching. It'll probably break records because everyone's going to want to know what your fan base does with the sign game, the chants. It already happens anyway, right? With every school and, F the Gators and all that.
Tennessee fans doing the war chant. That was fantastic.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, inject the hate into your veins because they only do that for brands that matter.
You got another fan here. Great to have Rock and Rant. He is the one Miami fan I can tolerate. This is Daniel Gorby. He's a member here.
Thanks, you, Daniel.
And I know you got to cut out soon, so because you got your own show to do. But is there any final thoughts for you? Do you want to make a prediction?
Look, I think this is going to go down into the fourth quarter. I think it'll be close. I think my gut is that it would be like 24-21, 10 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. And I'm thinking there'll be some play that, whether it's on offense or turnover as time's going down, that makes it like a 31-21 type of game, but only towards the end, because whenever anyone is expecting a blowout or not even a blowout, the spread's 4.5 points, but whenever everyone's thinking they're done with the narrative, this is not the game to do that. And even if it's only moving from like wide left to wide right, or to like, hey, the last time these two teams were both in the top 10, it was a blowout on the FSU side. That wasn't the narrative. Like Jameis ran it up on Miami. It's been 20 plus years since we had a top 5, but nothing really ever goes to chalk in this series other than it's almost always memorable.
Yeah, agreed. And, regardless of what happens, like you said, Miami's buttoned up and they're doing well, and there's a lot of things still to play for, especially in this day and age. College football is different now, so a one loss is not going to kill you. So whatever happens from this game, Florida State winning, Miami winning, there's still a lot of season left to play. It's just that one fan base is going to have a lot of fun at the expense of the other fan base on social media. That's the difference.
Yeah. I don't know if it's exactly 364 more days of it, because I don't know when we're scheduled to play next year. Right. But it's at least 300 days of total ownership. And then we will live vicariously by watching just the Gators suffer and suffer and suffer. And really, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's never anything wrong with that. But I appreciate you. Again, let everybody know real quick where they can find you.
Absolutely. You can find me personally put an @ before Rock and Rant. That's my Twitter, X handle, whichever one you choose to do. And then our channel is CFB as in boy, the letter X Express, the word express without the E. And we talk about everything from a national college football perspective. In Miami, big games like this, we're gonna have a little bit of a slant, but we have we talked more about this game, and you can come over to our channel. I'll have something up with Vince either tomorrow if you're watching live on Monday, and if you're catching the rewatch crew on Thursday, and you want some more about our take on this with me asking Vince more questions, you'll be able to see that on our channel as well.
Awesome. Thanks for your time. Good luck with your show a little later tonight, and we'll be chatting more this week, I believe.
All right. Thanks, Vince. Take care, guys. Appreciate the invite.
Bye-bye. All right, so apparently Ryan is still connected, but we cannot see him for whatever reason. He's texting me like his thumbs are going crazy right now. I think Ryan just needs to leave the show and come back in. So Ryan, let me send him a message real quick here. See if that can work. But as a reminder to everybody tonight, we are doing this live on Monday, of course. You know that because you're here. But if you happen to be catching this show on Thursday, it's not live. It's recorded. It's recorded. So we apologize for having to preempt our normal schedule of Thursday night at 7. But that's what we had to do because, sometimes life gets in the way and you gotta, zig when you should zag. It was great to have Rock and Ran on. I'm going to wait a moment here to make sure we can get Ryan back on the show. Let me remove him. Let me have him get back in. Anybody in the chat here, any questions you want to ask or comments? I'll go through the comment section here real quick. We had Joshua Geiger here for the show tonight. He's going back to the original discussion about the Virginia game here. I knew this was going to be a challenging game for the defense. Good thing is they can build off this going forward. I feel like they will bounce back this weekend. Yeah, I mean, you want to be able to have teaching moments off of a win, right? But there's definitely a lot of teachable moments from the loss. So hopefully that's true. Friends Call Me Sean was here tonight, also donated to the program. We have a $100 FMFFM goal tonight. If you don't know what the acronym means, I would have to question your Nole fandom. But anyway, that's the goal for this week. That's our Miami Hate Week goal. So if you're here tonight and you want to donate to the channel, feel free to do that with a super chat on YouTube. The least you could do, though, is subscribe and hit the like button. But if you're listening on Thursday or watching on Thursday, you can do the super like or the super thanks is another way you can donate to the program for a pre-recorded show. Let's see who else was here in the show tonight. Daniel Gorby also chimed in tonight. And that's pretty much it for comments. And I don't see, Ryan, I don't see you. So I can't add you back in the show. So I'm gonna close it out here. Ryan, if you want to post in the chat, maybe I don't know if you're ready to give your prediction yet. Oh, says he's offline. I don't know. If you want to put your prediction in the chat, I predicted earlier today on Rock and Rant show that the Noles were going to win 34-28. So one score game, and but I do think the Noles are going to pull it out this weekend. I will be there. Ryan will not be there. Again, life gets in the way sometimes. And don't forget also, I will be streaming the Marching Chiefs Skull Session at starting at 5:15. So the Skull Session starts at 5:15. So if you can't go to the game this weekend, but you still want to be part of the vibe, still want to be part of the entourage and the feel, and just, Doak Campbell on a Saturday night with Miami in town, tune into the Skull Session stream at 5:15. And other than that, I think this is a good place to wrap the show up. As a reminder, this has been Garnet Old. No inside info, no contacts, no problem. We want to thank again Captain John Black for supporting us as always. And he does so with a gracious heart. So thank you, Captain John Black. And like I said, we won't see anybody Thursday, but you can rewatch the broadcast if you want on Thursday. And other than that, we will see you guys this Saturday for Florida State versus Miami. Go Noles.